An interesting discovery was made in 1942 during World War II. A forest ranger named Hali discovered a lake in a remote valley of the Himalayas at an altitude of 5,000 meters. But that wasn't the mystery. He was shocked when he went and looked near this small crystal clear lake because he saw that there was a skeleton at the bottom of the 4-meter pond. Then he looked at different places. Then he saw another one, another, and another. There were dozens of them around. At first, he couldn't understand what it was about, but then he realized that the lake was full of human skeletons. He immediately went downstairs and reported the situation to his superiors. The incident was starting to become mysterious. How did these bodies end up in the lake on this remote hill where no one was around? While doing research on this subject, I almost pushed my mental limits and was shocked. You'll probably experience something similar after what I'm about to tell you. Great mysteries on Earth. The mystery of skeletons in the Himalaya, Uttarakhand, India. There is a lake at the top of the Himalaya mountains in northern India. This lake remains frozen for most of the year. But when summer comes and the water begins to recede, a shocking sight emerges. Not only in the lake, thousands of human bones lie scattered around because of these skeletons that emerged as the ice thawed. This place is called Lake of Skeletons. This place is often visited by tourists, and some collect these skeletons they find and pile them up. But everything depends on the discovery of these skeletons, or the possibility that it was thrown there. This is exactly where the big mystery begins. Who the people who died here were, where they came from, and for what purpose, has been the subject of research for years. Although discovery started in 1942, the story actually goes back much further. After a simple research, it came to mind that this was a military discovery. A group of Japanese soldiers wanted to sneak through the mountains, and it was thought that they were somehow destroyed at this point. But it was necessary to prove it, therefore, more detailed research began. A group of anthropologists reached Rupkund Lake and conducted research. What they see when they look back after the research and look at the results had shaken them deeply, because nearly 300 human skeletons were found scattered in the region. Besides adults, there were also children. Some skeletons had fractures in their skulls. It was as if something had hit their head or something had fallen. To determine the ages of the skeletons found by Oxford University, radiocarbon tests were carried out. When the results came, they were shocked for the second time because the age of some skeletons was 1,200 years ago, that is, in the 850s. The idea that there might be an epidemic came to mind as to why they died. Those who lost their lives after a major epidemic. The idea that he was brought to this out-of-sight place and left. But examinations showed that they were perfectly healthy before they died. Then it was thought that a quarrel between them put an end to many of them. But you will soon see that this possibility does not reflect reality. It was as if something else had happened to them. The real question to ask at this point is, how did these skeletons, which are over 1,000 years old, get there? What happened was a little strange because this was an extremely remote and isolated place. Many days away from any settlement, a place high in the mountains, not even on a trade route. Then something happened. Local people talked about an incident from the past. It was built to worship the goddess temple named Nanda Devi Jat, and from an incident on a journey that lasted many days. During this journey, there was also a king who was crossing the Himalayan hills. The king took dancers with him to ensure that this long journey would not be boring. But this action made the goddess very angry. Thereupon, he rained down huge stones on them and inflicted a severe torment on them, and they were all condemned to death in that area. Looking at the injuries on the skeletons, what happened pretty much matched the story. But although this Indian myth was a beautiful story, it seemed illogical. It makes sense that a travel group, he died after being caught in a violent storm that caused large hailstones to fall. That seemed like an acceptable explanation. But something has emerged that will deepen the mystery even further. 76 different skeletons were collected from the region for examination. Some of them had injuries unrelated to natural conditions. Apart from this, there was a difference of 250 years between the ages of some skeletons. It was as if someone had brought them there and left them there, as if it were a tradition. The strange thing was that some of the 76 different skeletons dated back to the 1700s, that is to say, in different time periods over a period of 1,200 years, different people lost their lives there or were brought there. The more I researched, the more the mystery grew, and the situation became more and more inextricable. So much so that some of the people found were from South Asia. A small number of them came here, unreasonably, from the Greek region. Really, what the hell was this? Every clue we find pushes us to ask more questions. Every answer gave rise to a new question. Was this place a place where mass suicides took place, just like in the Japanese forests? But if that were the case, injuries should not have occurred. Apart from this, the child skeletons found clearly showed that there was no such assumption. The only thing that makes sense is that some gangs in the area, by using force in some way on people traveling or passing by, neutralize and plunder and bring them to this secluded place and leave them there so that they will not be found. But if we look at the time scale, the gangs must have been doing the same job for centuries. No matter how we hold it, no theory is completely compatible with reality. In my opinion, at least one of the data obtained must be incorrect. For example, the timescales revealed after radiocarbon testing of the deceased. If there were no hundreds of years difference between the people who died, so even if these things happen within a certain period of time, the cause of the deaths could somehow be attributed to natural events, a massacre, bringing their dead here and burying them or things like that. If that were the case, this story would have a definitive conclusion, but unfortunately, it is not. More research is needed to find out what happened to them. Well, maybe one day we can learn their true story. All we know for now is that they will still remain a mystery in the Himalayas. Even though we can't solve this mystery yet, you've heard the story. Of course, you can help me in the comments about what it is. You can like this video